Welcome to Reddit Tea Time. Am I the bonehead for telling my parents they repulse me and informing their friends the reason after learning they had harassed my late wife to write letters to our kids before she died? I, 28 male, was married to Amy for 6 years and we had 3 children together. Our sons are now 10 and 8 and our daughter is 6. She passed away 2 years ago from cancer. She was sick for a little over a year and had a terminal diagnosis for 8 months. I helped care for Amy at home with the help of her family, her mom, 4 siblings, and even her grandparents, before she died. And her death appeared peaceful. But Amy's twin Ivy recently discovered that toward the end, Amy had been dealing with some crap, courtesy of my parents. Per Amy's diary she kept before she died, my parents had requested that she write letters to our kids telling them she wanted them to have another mom someday soon, and that she wanted them to promise to have their hearts and minds open to that, and to not treat my next wife as just my wife, or just a stepmom but a mom. They also wanted her to tell the kids to ask me for a new mom within a few months of her death. She was supposed to tell them it was her dying wish and all sorts of crap. Amy had told them she had recorded videos and wrote letters, but that those were not words she would put in either. My parents hounded her every second she was alone and they were visiting. They made her so distressed in the end. According to the diary, my parents told Amy she was a terrible mother and a selfish person for not urging us to move on and find another wife and mom once she was no longer here. I read those pages myself and I was furious. Even more so because my parents have been urging me to date and explore the prospect of remarrying, and when I said I had no interest in that, they told me it's what Amy would have wanted for me. They even brought up in the last few months that my kids will grow up without a mom, and argued when I told them they always will, because she died while they were so young. I texted my parents that I knew what they had done and to stay away from me and the kids. They told me they had done nothing wrong and had no regret about their actions to make mine and the kids' lives better. That pushed me over the edge, and I drove to their house to tell them face to face that they repulsed me. To harass a dying woman, to harass my wife, to make her final weeks more stressful than they already were. I told them they were sick. I didn't realize when I started that they had friends over. The friends came out to find out what was going on, so I told them what my parents had done. Then I left. My parents tried to defend their actions via text, saying I should be so hurt and angry at Amy and not them. When I ignored them, they told me I had no right to humiliate them in front of their friends. My siblings also told me I shouldn't have said anything to my parents. They said I should understand they were putting me first. I asked them if they thought our parents would have harassed me the same way if I had been in Amy's place, and they couldn't deny that my parents wouldn't have. Am I the bonehead? Absolutely not the bonehead. As if it isn't bad enough, your parents manipulated your dying spouse. They then bring your kids into it. You may never feel a need to repartner, and that's perfectly okay. You need to do what is right for you and your kids. It makes me wonder if they have someone in mind they're going to try and force onto you. If it was me, I'd take the kids and walk away permanently. What they did is unforgivable in my mind. Not the bonehead. OMG, I don't think there's any coming back from this. They tried to manipulate children and made Amy's final months miserable. I hope you and your children can get past this, and I'd consider never speaking to your emotionally abusive parents and your siblings who support them. Again, I'm so sorry for your loss. Not the bonehead. Please keep your children away from your parents. There is no telling what deluded things they will say to them. Maybe telling them also to be mad at their mother, or worse. Not the bonehead. How horrible that must have been for Amy, for no matter what your parents' intentions were, it sounds to me like they were calling her replaceable. You did good defending her memory. And if your parents truly believe they did nothing wrong, they would have no reason to be humiliated that their friends found out. Am I the bonehead for not defending my mother-in-law after she kept saying my daughter looks nothing like me? I'm not sure what crawled up my mother-in-law's butt, but her and I got along so well before I got pregnant. She called me her daughter, came over to see me all the time, called me randomly to just talk, told me she loves me all the time, etc. But after I got pregnant, something switched in her. She stopped calling. She never said I love you back when I said it. She only came over to see my husband, and 9 times out of 10, it was trying to get him out of the house to go with her. Barely gives me a hello or goodbye in passing. She even tried staying in the labor and delivery room after she was already told no, because her baby needs support, and clung to my husband's arm several times, trying to get him to go sit on the couch with her, instead of standing by me where he was. She was kicked out by nurses. Since I had my daughter 3 months ago, she has come over a good 10 to 15 times and has literally only held my kid twice. She just follows my husband around everywhere and still tries to get him to leave with her to go do chores or tasks for her, changing tires, changing oil, fixing her computer, moving around her house, etc., etc. And honestly, none of that bothers me nearly as much as her comments about how my daughter looks nothing like me and looks exactly like her and my husband. For a bit of context, my husband looks nothing like his mom. He is a spitting image of his father. His mom is short, blonde, brown eyes. He is super tall, black hair, green eyes. You can't tell they are related at all. But she insists my daughter looks just like her and my husband and nothing like me. She's made these comments more times than I can count, and I just give a, "Yeah, okay, Becky," and leave it. But yesterday I hosted a dinner for the family and obviously invited her. She shows up with a scrapbook album with a bunch of photos of her and my husband from birth to present. She was showing and telling everyone who would listen that my daughter was basically not even mine if you go off of looks. My husband spoke up a few times with a clip. She actually looks just like my wife, but his mom didn't acknowledge him. But then she got to my mom, and my mom, being a no BS woman, said, "Are you blind or are you just being ignorant? That girl looks just like my daughter and nothing like you." Kinda weird to me that you are desperately pushing the narrative that the baby looks like your son, and you, considering your son looks nothing like you either. No one in the house said anything, but a few of them were chuckling. My husband also didn't say anything, but he looked more like a deer in headlights than anything. My mother-in-law then left. She group texted my husband, and I later on, saying she will never forgive us for not defending her against my mom, making a scene and embarrassing her in front of everyone. I don't feel bad. My husband does. Am I the bonehead? Edited to add, she has 4 kids. My husband is the youngest. He's 27. Her 2 daughters have 1 child each, both 12-year-old girls. Her other son has 5 kids. She takes her daughter's kids once a month. She has never made a conscious effort with any of her other son's kids, outside of his oldest 9 female. She doesn't act like this with her other kids at all. She acts uninterested altogether. Ages. Not sure if it's relevant. Mother-in-law is 61. My mom is 44. My husband and I are both 27. Here's your answer. She is feeling pushed out, and this situation spoke loud and clear where she stands with your family. It seems to me she has been trying to reassert herself as part of the family. She's doing it all the wrong ways, but this is what it sounds like to me. Your mother-in-law's generation has a terrible time communicating in general, and she seems to be falling directly into the path of passive aggression. However, none of this makes you the bonehead. Not the bonehead. Not the bonehead. Tell her. My mother simply ended the scene you started. Funny that you think your son should have defended you from my mother when my mother was doing exactly the same thing by defending me from your negative comments. And then don't welcome her back into your home until she can respect you. And if your husband can't understand this, then he needs help. Not the bonehead. Your mom called a spade a spade. If you would have done anything, she would have gaslit the hell out of you. However, having your mother, basically her peer, Call her out in front of everyone, holding back none of the niceties either you or your husband would have had. Put your mother-in-law in her place. Just look, she can't even call your mother out, because she knows she would not hold back and has no reason to continue to have a good relationship with her. However, you and your husband do. So she blames the both of you, probably really you, for not defending her craziness. In her defense, a really small defense, it must have been hard having a son that looked nothing like her. So in a way, this was a do-over, where she could have a piece of her in your child. However, it really made no sense because she tried to loop her son into it, where he looks nothing like her. But I guess she can't handle the fact that now her son has a full family, so she won't have such a close relationship anymore. Did I mention not the bonehead OP? Not the bonehead. You took her baby away for real now. She also wanted to continue being central to her baby's world. This particular actual baby you guys just had put an end to that. The transition from center of the family to literally being alone on the periphery is a hard one. But it's not on you how she is coping or not coping with it. Be kind, though. There isn't a mother who raised good kids that launched into the world that won't feel that pain one day. Am I the bonehead for not wanting to give my nephew a puppy after he attempted to steal one from me? I am 25 female. My dog, Dove, had puppies. She's a golden lab. I promised my nephew Dion 10 he could have one of the puppies when they are ready. He was so excited. So last week, when Dion and my sister came over, he asked if he could see the puppies, which I said yes. He went in to see them. Me and my sister were catching up. Then we heard Dove barking, which alerted me to go check on Dion and Dove. Dion was standing in the corner with his hands behind his back. We could hear the puppy's muffled cries, and I pulled him forward and found he had put the puppy in a plastic bag. I told him off and asked him what was he doing. He started crying and said he wanted the puppy now, and that he was taking this one home. I told him no, you already know that they're too young and that they need their mother's milk. Dion had a tantrum. My sister had to take him home. Dove was understandably agitated and was now wary of who comes near her pups. I had decided over a couple of days that I didn't trust Dion to have one of them. So when my sister came to visit, I told her that I didn't want to give Dion one of the pups after what he did. She got upset with me and said it was a mistake and he learned his lesson. I said he didn't even apologize. She said, "What for?" The puppy was fine. I got angry then and said, "What if Dove hadn't alerted us? The puppy could have died." She said I was going to break his heart if I go back on my promise. I said I'm sorry, but that's my final decision. She left angry. I've since been getting people on my back about breaking my promise and that I'm a liar. I even got a video message of Dion crying and calling me names. I'm starting to feel bad. Am I the bonehead? Not the bonehead. Absolutely not the bonehead. You don't put a living animal in a plastic bag. You cannot reasonably expect to receive a dog if you tried to steal it previously. You can't shoplift from a store, get caught, and try to remain in good standing as a customer. The same thing applies here. It's your choice what happens to the puppies, and your choice who you sell them to, not her. You're not a liar. Had Dion not stolen the puppy, hid it from you, and scared the mama, you would have kept your promise. However, the situation changed, and therefore the promise is void. I'd keep a good eye on your pups to make sure she doesn't try and take one for themselves. Not the bonehead. The kid could have killed that poor pup. Plus, he didn't even apologize for it, and instead just threw a tantrum. Your nephew is far too young to be looking after a pup, and your sister is untrustworthy as well. She didn't discipline her child or even correct him on why he shouldn't have tried to steal a pup. She didn't even make her kid apologize and basically wrote it off because the puppy ended up okay thanks to you. That's not someone I would trust with any dog, let alone a puppy. Not the bonehead. Dion doesn't realize that the puppy was a living being and not a toy. And the reaction of his mother, trying to guilt you, sending you a message of a crying Dion and so on, shows that she wouldn't stand up if Dion would treat the puppy poorly. You can give him a toy dog, but not the living puppies. Am I the bonehead for telling people I can't have kids? I can't have kids, and it's been a thing I've dealt with my whole life. When I was in my late teens, I had this issue, not gonna get into details, and had to get both my testicles removed. Now, I've got these prosthetics and am on hormonal replacement therapy. I generally don't openly share this as I feel it's a personal matter. The only ones who know the details are my parents and my wife. She learned about it when we started dating because I prefer to be upfront. Fortunately, she's always been very understanding. Having children was never a priority for her, and since I can't, it's worked out well for both of us. However, since we got married, a few things have become a bit uncomfortable. The first 2 years were fine, but recently, it seems like a switch has flipped in the minds of people we know. Almost everyone now asks us, "When are you gonna have kids?" We usually respond that it's not in our plans and try to steer the conversation elsewhere. However, some individuals are persistently annoying, saying things like, "Oh, but you guys need to," or "You'll never be complete without kids." It's starting to bother me quite a bit. So, last week during a meeting with a couple of friends, someone brought up the topic. Admittedly, I was already having a rough day, and when they asked about us having kids, I, against my better judgment, just said, "Well, never. I can't have kids. I'm sterile, don't even have testicles." So, if you could kindly stop bothering us about it, I'd really appreciate it. As you can imagine, that comment really soured the mood for the entire evening. People got very upset and uncomfortable, to the point where both my wife and I decided to leave. I apologized to my wife, who seemed unbothered, claiming they had it coming, but I'm aware that people in our friend group have been talking behind our backs. They say I was rude and acted like a bonehead, insisting that they couldn't have known, and were just looking out for us. Now, I do feel like a bonehead for the way I spoke. I could have communicated more civilly, especially for my wife's sake. She enjoys meeting our friends, and I doubt it will happen much in the near future until this blows over. Anyhow, Reddit, am I the bonehead? Also, forgive me if the text doesn't make much sense. English isn't my native language, and I tried using one of those syntax tools, but I'm not sure if it really worked. Not the bonehead. Not rude at all. Whether or not you are able to father children is your story to tell, and no one else's. Nothing wrong with someone asking you once when you're going to have kids, but when they persist, it's rude and crossing a boundary. Hopefully you have shut them down and won't hear any more about it. If people in your friend group are gossiping about you behind your backs, then that shows you how much of a friend they are. Choose friends wisely. Not the bonehead. No, they weren't looking out for you. They were being rude, pushy boneheads. They deserved what they got, and kudos to your wife for feeling the same way. Not the bonehead. I despise the comment, "You'll never be complete without kids." My response? Maybe you weren't complete until kids. But I am absolutely fine and very happy. Not the bonehead. Your wife was right. People who push and push and push deserve what they get. Think of it this way. They're basically asking for details of your sex life. Hey, when are you going to have kids? Is your wife ovulating? Are you going to have sex soon? Not in so many words, but when they don't shut up, that's what they're insinuating. As long as you and your wife are unbothered, just move along. Next time you meet these people, I guarantee the last thing they will be bothering you with is your procreation efforts. So how about that game last night? We'll be as personal as they get. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next Reddit story. Take care.